America, US, USA, and the United States of America redirect here. For the continents, see Americas. For other uses, see America, disambiguation, US, disambiguation, USA, disambiguation, the United States of America, disambiguation, and United States, disambiguation. The United States of America, USA or USA, commonly known as the United States, US or America, is a country primarily located in North America. It consists of 50 states, a federal district, 5 major unincorporated territories, 326 Indian reservations, and some minor possessions. At 3.8 million square miles, 9.8 million square kilometers, it is the world's third or fourth largest country by total area. The United States shares significant land borders with Canada to the north and Mexico to the south, as well as limited maritime borders with the Bahamas, Cuba, and Russia. 22 With a population of more than 331 million people, it is the third most populous country in the world. The national capital is Washington, D.C., and the most populous city is New York City. Paleo Indians migrated from Siberia to the North American mainland at least 12,000 years ago, and European colonization began in the 16th century. The United States emerged from the 13 British colonies established along the East Coast. Disputes over taxation and political representation with Great Britain led to the American Revolutionary War, 1775–1783, which established independence. In the late 18th century, the U.S. began expanding across North America, gradually obtaining new territories, sometimes through war, frequently displacing Native Americans, and admitting new states. By 1848, the United States spanned the continent. Slavery was legal in the southern United States until the second half of the 19th century, when the American Civil War led to its abolition. The Spanish-American War and World War I established the U.S. as a world power, a status confirmed by the outcome of World War II. During the Cold War, the United States fought the Korean War and the Vietnam War but avoided direct military conflict with the Soviet Union. The two superpowers competed in the space race, culminating in the 1969 spaceflight that first landed humans on the Moon. The Soviet Union's dissolution in 1991 ended the Cold War, leaving the United States as the world's sole superpower. The United States is a federal republic and a representative democracy with 3 separate branches of government, including a bicameral legislature. It is a founding member of the United Nations, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, Organization of American States, NATO, and other international organizations. It is a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. Considered a melting pot of cultures and ethnicities, its population has been profoundly shaped by centuries of immigration. The U.S. ranks high in international measures of economic freedom, quality of life, education, and human rights, and has low levels of perceived corruption. However, the country has received criticism concerning inequality related to race, wealth and income, the use of capital punishment, high incarceration rates, and lack of universal health care. The United States is a highly developed country, accounts for approximately a quarter of global GDP, and is the world's largest economy by GDP at market exchange rates. By value, the United States is the world's largest importer and the second largest exporter of goods. Although its population is only 4.2% of the world's total, it holds 29.4% of the total wealth in the world, the largest share held by any country. Making up more than a third of global military spending, it is the foremost military power in the world, and it is a leading political, cultural, and scientific force internationally. 23. Etymology. See also, Naming of the Americas, Names of the United States, Names for United States citizens, an American word. The first known use of the name America dates back to 1507, when it appeared on a world map produced by the German cartographer Martin Waldseemüller. On his map, the name is shown in large letters on what would now be considered South America, in honor of Amerigo Vespucci. The Italian explorer was the first to postulate that the West Indies did not represent Asia's eastern limit but were part of a previously unknown landmass. 2425 and 1538, the Flemish cartographer Gerardus Mercator used the name America on his own world map, applying it to the entire Western Hemisphere. 26. The first documentary evidence of the phrase United States of America dates from a January 2, 1776 letter written by Stephen Moylan to George Washington's aide-de-camp Joseph Reed. Moylan expressed his wish to go with full and ample powers from the United States of America to Spain to seek assistance in the Revolutionary War effort. 27, 28, 29 The first known publication of the phrase United States of America was in an anonymous essay in the Virginia Gazette newspaper in Williamsburg, Virginia, on April 6, 1776. 30. The second draft of the Articles of Confederation, prepared by John Dickinson and completed no later than June 17, 1776, declared the name of this confederation shall be the United States of America. 31. The final version of the Articles, sent to the states for ratification in late 1777, stated that the style of this confederacy shall be the United States of America. 32. In June 1776, Thomas Jefferson wrote the phrase United States of America in all capitalized letters in the headline of his original rough draft of the Declaration of Independence. 31. This draft of the document did not surface until June 21, 1776, and it is unclear whether it was written before or after Dickinson used the term in his June 17 draft of the Articles of Confederation. 31. The short form United States is also standard. Other common forms are the U.S., the USA, and America. Colloquial names are the US of A. and, internationally, the States. Columbia, a name popular in American poetry and songs of the late 18th century, derives its origin from Christopher Columbus. Both Columbus and Columbia appear frequently in U.S. place names, including Columbus, Ohio, Columbia, South Carolina, and the District of Columbia. Places and institutions throughout the Western Hemisphere bear the two names, including Panama, the country of Columbia, the Columbia River, and Columbia University. The phrase United States was originally plural in American usage. It described a collection of states, e.g., the United States are. The singular form became popular after the end of the Civil War and is now standard usage in the U.S. A citizen of the United States is an American. United States, American, and U.S. refer to the country adjectivally, American values, U.S. forces. In English, the word American rarely refers to topics or subjects not directly connected with the United States. 33. History. Main articles: History of the United States and Outline of United States History. Indigenous Peoples and Pre-Columbian History. Further information: Native Americans in the United States, Prehistory of the United States, and Pre-Columbian Era. Aerial view of the Cliff Palace. The Cliff Palace, built by the Native American Pueblones between AD 1190 and 1260. It has been generally accepted that the first inhabitants of North America migrated from Siberia by way of the Bering Land Bridge and arrived at least 12,000 years ago. However, some evidence suggests an even earlier date of arrival. 34, 35, 36 The Clovis culture, which appeared around 11,000 BC, is believed to represent the first wave of human settlement of the Americas. 37-38 This was likely the first of three major waves of migration into North America. Later waves brought the ancestors of present-day Athabascans, Aleuts, and Eskimos. 39. Over time, indigenous cultures in North America grew increasingly complex, and some, such as the pre-Columbian Mississippian culture in the southeast, developed advanced agriculture, architecture, and complex societies. 40 The city-state of Cahokia is the largest, most complex pre-Columbian archaeological site in the modern-day United States. 41 In the Four Corners region, ancestral Puebloan culture developed from centuries of agricultural experimentation. 42 The Haudenosaunee, located in the southern Great Lakes region, was established at some point between the 12th and 15th centuries. 43 Most prominent along the Atlantic coast were the Algonquian tribes, who practiced hunting and trapping, along with limited cultivation. Estimating the native population of North America at the time of European contact is difficult. 44-45 Douglas H. Hubelaker of the Smithsonian Institution estimated that there was a population of 92,916 in the South Atlantic states and a population of 473,616 in the Gulf states. 46 But most academics regard this figure as too low. 44 Anthropologist Henry F. Dobbins believed the populations were much higher, suggesting around 1.1 million along the shores of the Gulf of Mexico, 2.2 million people living between Florida and Massachusetts, 5.2 million in the Mississippi Valley and tributaries, and around 700,000 people in the Florida Peninsula. 44-45 European settlements. Further information, Colonial history of the United States and 13 colonies. Claims of very early colonization of coastal New England by the Norse are disputed and controversial. The first documented arrival of Europeans in the continental United States is that of Spanish conquistadors such as Juan Ponce de Leon, who made his first expedition to Florida in 1513. Even earlier, Christopher Columbus had landed in Puerto Rico on his 1493 voyage, and San Juan was settled by the Spanish a decade later. 47 The Spanish set up the first settlements in Florida and New Mexico, such as St. Augustine, often considered the nation's oldest city. 48 And Santa Fe. The French established their own settlements along the Mississippi River, notably New Orleans. 49 Successful English settlement of the eastern coast of North America began with the Virginia colony in 1607 at Jamestown and with the Pilgrims colony at Plymouth in 1620. 50-51 The continent's first elected legislative assembly, Virginia's House of Burgesses, was founded in 1619. Documents such as the Mayflower Compact and the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut established precedents for representative self-government and constitutionalism that would develop throughout the American colonies. 52-53 Many settlers were dissenting Christians who came seeking religious freedom. In 1784, the Russians were the first Europeans to establish a settlement in Alaska, at Three Saints Bay. Russian America once spanned much of the present-day state of Alaska. 54. In the early days of colonization, many European settlers were subject to food shortages, disease, and attacks from Native Americans. Native Americans were also often at war with neighboring tribes and European settlers. In many cases, however, the natives and settlers came to depend on one another. Settlers traded for food and animal pelts, natives for guns, tools, and other European goods. 55 Natives taught many settlers to cultivate corn, beans, and other foodstuffs. European missionaries and others felt it was important to civilize the Native Americans and urged them to adopt European agricultural practices and lifestyles. 56-57 However, with the increased European colonization of North America, the Native Americans were displaced and often killed. 58 The native population of America declined after European arrival for various reasons. 59-60-61 Primarily diseases such as smallpox and measles. 62-63 Map of the U.S. showing the original 13 colonies along the eastern seaboard. The original 13 colonies, shown in red, in 1775. European settlers also began trafficking of African slaves into colonial America via the transatlantic slave trade. 64 Because of a lower prevalence of tropical diseases and better treatment, slaves had a much higher life expectancy in North America than in South America, leading to a rapid increase in their numbers. 65-66 Colonial society was largely divided over the religious and moral implications of slavery, and several colonies passed acts both against and in favor of the practice. 67-68 However, by the turn of the 18th century, African slaves had supplanted European indentured servants as cash crop labor, especially in the American South. 69. The 13 colonies, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, that would become the United States of America were administered by the British as overseas dependencies. 70 all nonetheless had local governments with elections open to most free men. 71 with extremely high birth rates, low death rates, and steady settlement, the colonial population grew rapidly, eclipsing Native American populations. 72 The Christian revivalist movement of the 1730s and 1740s known as the Great Awakening fueled interest both in religion and in religious liberty. 73 During the 7 Years' War, 1756–1763, known in the U.S. as the French and Indian War, British forces captured Canada from the French. With the creation of the province of Quebec, Canada's francophone population would remain isolated from the English-speaking colonial dependencies of Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and the 13 colonies. Excluding the Native Americans who lived there, the 13 colonies had a population of over 2.1 million in 1770, about a third that of Britain. Despite continuing new arrivals, the rate of natural increase was such that by the 1770s only a small minority of Americans had been born overseas. 74 The colonies' distance from Britain had allowed the development of self-government, but their unprecedented success motivated British monarchs to periodically seek to reassert royal authority. 75 Independence and expansion. Further information, American Revolution and territorial evolution of the United States. See caption. Declaration of Independence, painting by John Trumbull, depicts the Committee of Five presenting their draft of the Declaration to the Continental Congress, July 4, 1776. The American Revolutionary War fought by the 13 colonies against the British Empire was the first successful war of independence by a non-European entity against a European power in modern history. Americans had developed an ideology of republicanism, asserting that government rested on the will of the people as expressed in their local legislatures. They demanded their rights as Englishmen and no taxation without representation. The British insisted on administering the empire through Parliament, and the conflict escalated into war. 76. The Second Continental Congress unanimously adopted the Declaration of Independence on July 4, 1776. This day is celebrated annually as Independence Day.